Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. My name is Michael Greeno. I am the head coach for Pragmatic Strength and owner of Barpath Powerlifting Analytics. I am also Devonte Lewis's coach, and he is the current all-time world record holder in the squat. And after he set that, I had a lot of people reach out to me and wanted to know how that was done. Because if you know Devonte's backstory, he's only been doing this. He's only been powerlifting. His first meet was literally a year ago. He was the first person ever to squat 455 in competition in his first meet ever, break the subtotal record. He is a very unique individual and has a unique story. And people inquired on how that was done. When Devonte and I first met, he squatted maybe around 700 pounds. Now he squats 1081. So he's put well over 140 kilos on his squat in a matter of 18 to 24 months. Um, and that's been pretty close to under my purview. So I want to kind of give you guys a rubber meets the road type of things that we've done and kind of give you an insight of how we've worked in a kind of a two-part series. I'm going to present the current phase that we did to kind of prepare during the off season to get him ready for his competition season. But that is, you know, we won't ever really understand the peaking phase without understanding the work we did to really get him there. So, and I think that's where a lot of value is when people ask questions like, well, how did he do that? I can explain, right? I can explain through that off-season work and what we're trying to accomplish and kind of help you guys understand like some methodologies and things that we do here at in my camp to do this because I've been doing this for over 15 years. I've been powerlifting for over 30. I've seen a lot of different systems, paradigms, and help people understand this a little better. So hopefully this answers a lot of questions for people, or maybe people can learn a few things. So without further ado, we're going to go straight into it. So Train Heroic is what we used initially. I'm switching over to a new platform, but currently we still have a lot of my legacy data over here. We got to work. The big thing about Devonte in his current state, right? His current state, when he did his first meet, he did the 455 kilos. He had a massive thoracic collapse, right? So when he came out of the hole, it was just hunched over and then he kind of rolled out of it, right? He lost his core, he lost his T spine. And that's just because he really is just really new at this sport. Um, Devonte is a collegiate football player, collegiate cheerleader, All American in both. Very powerful, very explosive, very fast for a 450-pound man. Incredibly fast. Um, his strength is not his strength; it's his ability to move through space and time as if he is not what he is. Right? If you look at the greatest assets of some of the best lifters on the planet right now, they're very explosive in nature. You look at Austin Perkins, you look at Cranon. These are very fast people. I guarantee it. Like you ask them to run a 40-yard sprint, and it's going to be incredibly fast for their size and their what they are. They're very fast people. They lift with a lot of explosive intent, right? They're very dynamic people. It's not their muscle. It's their dynamic nature that makes them who they are, right? Devonte is just a very extreme big version of that, right? So when you put that in perspective, we don't have to sit here and do the fundamental bodybuilding things and tissue building and all these other things we do. It's from a restorative standpoint. So when you start looking at these movements and you're like, oh, like this looks amateur, it is. It's exactly what he needs. I planted and I made this soil in a very general sense of just the essential nutrients he needed in order to grow, right? I just created a good soil that's general that was able to grow. And then we backed it by belief and understanding, right? So I help him understand what we're doing. So in that respect of him working through his thoracic extension and trying to correct that, we had two phases of that. The first phase is do it through conditioning, through technical reinforcement, and deadlift was going to help with that. Frequency on squats, kind of producing some technical reinforcements, positional reinforcements, things that kind of helped push the envelope in that respect. So, um, and then some things he just really liked to do, right? And we're going to go over squat and deadlift and the leg stuff. We're not really going to go over the upper body stuff a whole lot. But again, maybe in like phase in part 3, if we'll do like a thing like that. But like part 1 is just purely for this off season. And so going into this first phase, you look standard 5x4 ascending work, right? And you're like, man, those numbers are really low, and like it didn't really tax him. You're right, didn't have to. He just needed to move. I just needed him to move. I need him to learn these warm up progressions. I need him to learn how to progress better and feel more warmed up and understand that I need quality. If I'm going to ask him to squat 500 kilos, or I'm going to ask him to squat the world record at this point in time, I need to make sure that that the engine is firing on all cylinders prior to him even getting to a dangerous place, right? Because anything over 800 pounds is pretty dangerous. 700 pounds is even dangerous. I mean, 700 psi is all it's needed to break the densest bone in the body, right? So you have to understand that like there's a lot of high risk reward when you're talking about working with lifters that are bigger, right? You're talking about 1,000 kilo plus type lifters. There's a lot of risk. Doesn't matter who you are. When I also say competition squat, I want people to understand that like I am in the camp of that hyper specificity only damages a lifter. And if you go back and you look at a lot of lifters who are dealing with significant injuries right now, especially on the natty side, you see a lot of lifters dealing with significant injuries. They're working with PTs and all these other stuff. It's because of the hyper specificity. Chances are they're not doing a lot of restorative movement, and they're doing things in too hyper focused manner and not leveraging ergonomics of a motion or a lift to be better. So when I sit here and talk about competition squat, it just means I want you to squat with a straight bar, and I want you to squat as best you can to depth. And if you can't hit depth, fine, I don't care. Just don't force it. But for Devonte, with him being such a big guy, he uses a squat bar. We don't use a power bar hardly at all. We use a squat bar. We use a West Side Bully bar. We use the bigger bars that are straight, like that are like multiply bars, because it's more comfortable for him. It doesn't beat up his elbows. It doesn't wrench his shoulders. It doesn't tear up his biceps, right? There'll be a time and place when we need to use those bars, but not right now. And I'll be honest with you, squatting with an Alico power bar is easier than squatting with a squat bar. And the reason why that is because it's out wider. There's a lot of talk today about the new Alico power bar being so whippy, but it's just as whippy as a Texas squat bar. So he's well adapted to that. So when we sit here and we talk about that, that's what I mean by competition squat. But if you look at his numbers, pretty easy, pretty simple. Front squats, again, we're really focusing on just keeping that chest up, keeping it from collapsing. You look at his deadlift days, we're looking at a lot of thoracic extension type work, cobra poses. We're rotating his deadlifts to help him understand it better. Speed deadlifts, very low reps, very focused on the 1 and 2 rep, so that there's, understanding what's better and what's best. Because typically if someone struggles on their first rep, the second rep is the best. So you help understand what's optimal and what's not, right? So again, we're teaching as we go here. And this is just week 1. But as we start going into the subsequent weeks, we're still doing the same thing, 5x4. These accessories have not changed. And the reason why it hasn't changed, and the reason why they're not going to change, you're going to notice probably the next 2 phases, they're not going to change. And why? Because we have found a content-rich environment in a soil composition, if you will, that is conducive to his growth and his recovery and his morale. These are things he likes to do. These are the things that he feels like he's progressing. These are the things that he's engaged in, and they're doing good for him, right? So you look 683, 738, 777, 815. We are learning our progressionary patterns. When you're talking about ascension work, it's not about pre-fatigue. If someone talks about pre-fatigue on ascending work, that they're missing the point. If you're getting fatigued on ascending work, that means you don't have the work capacity for it. If you hit your top set on your third or fourth set, you have a down set, you ensuring quality. You want to just have a good top set. You don't want it to be your first set. You don't want it to be your second set. You want to get a good warm up progression. A lot of people say, we have 3 attempts and stuff. You actually have 4 attempts in powerlifting. A lot of people don't understand that. You get 4 attempts in powerlifting. You get your last warm up, and then you have your 3 platform attempts. More often than not, your day is good or bad by your first attempt, which is your last warm up. If you do not dial that in correctly or have that consistent, the other 3 will fall apart. And that happens time and time again. People will open up too heavy, or they'll open up too light, or something won't connect right, or it'll be their last attempt to make it clean before they go out to the platform, right? It's their last attempt to make sure it's good, or it's their last mulligan they get before they have to go out and they actually have to make it clean, right? So their day is predicated on that last warm up, right? So that's why we get 4 attempts. Again, we rotate through this, still competition squatting. We're still doing our ascending work. We're still hitting those velocities because we use velocity training, velocity-based training. We also use this, and we also pair this with RPEs and stuff like that. So we're using a spectrum of metrics to be able to pace this correctly, right? It looks good, great, drop down. That's all I need to see this week, right? Pretty simple. We switch over to deadlift. We look at deadlift. Again, we go from accommodating resistance. Now we're looking at actual singles and doubles. We're working on technique. We're continuing to kind of reinforce thoracic extension. Again, we're just light touching that. We're not doing any direct intervention here on this day. We're doing all of our intervention here on these other 2 days, right? I want him focusing on squat and recovering. I want him the intervention stuff comes here. That's where we're correcting it. That's where we're correcting the thoracic extension, where the core rigidity and the things that we need to do in order to make this better, right? So as I go into that, you're going to notice, okay, things have changed a little bit. Okay, we're getting later in the block. 4, 4, 4, 2, 4. So later in the block, we have a direction of where we're taking this. The numbers and everything is starting to actually block through. Week 3 is typically his heaviest week, but this is going to be a 5-week block, and this is meant to build the progressions and then test those progressions with the interventional work that we've been doing, right? The front squat work, the conditioning work we've been doing, the thoracic work we're doing on our deadlift days, and things like that. Still allowing him to focus on this, but we got to a set of 2 at 8:59. Intensity's creeping up, not crazy, but we've learned at this point that we know we're ready to take this and test it in the next couple of weeks. So what we'll do is we're going to take all the lessons that we learned from this ascending method and this ascending work, and we're going to apply it through our progressions as we warm up. And we're going to put this as a more realistic thing. So we're going to start flowing and pivoting into a different way of doing this by applying this with good habits. We know what it's going to take for us to warm up and what is to feel proficient. So we work up, we hit that set of 2. We know that that's all we needed. We knew that we were probably going to hit a set of 4. We just didn't need it. We probably could have done a set of 4 and technique would have probably started to falter just a tad, but we want to recover. So again, we recover, we drop down to 595, we call it a day. Nothing crazy, right? We knew exactly what we needed to do. We cut it short, moved on. Again, still in service of this with our deadlift. Again, pushing singles, it's a progressionary thing, accommodating resistance, technique, and efficiency, max effort, right? Worked to a top set, got to 771, felt pretty good, didn't need to go anything above that, right? So progressing forward, this is where we pivot. The last 2 weeks of this phase, now it's focusing, we start focusing into the space and applying this moving forward. So as you see, not much changes. The accessories don't change. Things don't change. We keep it static. We're still light touching this, right? But then we start rotating into things to start bleeding into our next block, our next phase. We know that phase 2 is going to be around an SSB and really having a direct intervention on that thoracic and making it stronger. But we weren't quite ready to just throw it in there. We want to be able, when we start doing direct intervention, we want to be able to push it. And we knew that, right? So it's a slow pivot through it. So with that said, now you're looking at top down with a severe back off, with like a 20% off, 20-30% back down, right? His intensity is 3. He used all that ascending knowledge to go up, right? He said all that ascending knowledge to go up to 400 kilos. We get there, use those 600s, 700s, those sets of 4, those sets of, whatever. Now we do those in a manner that we have good conditioning. We have good understanding of what our progression is going to be because we're conditioned for it. Now we ascend all the way up to that point. We hit what we need to hit here to condition ourselves, because next week is a testing week. Because what we're going to do is we're going to apply all of this that we know, and we're going to test it directly to see how hard this breaks down, right? How hard our T-spine breaks down. Has this intervention work actually ever, like, is it working? Is it doing the things we need to do? And there's ways we can test that. So we touch this, we feel good about the 400 kilos. We drop down, hammer a few sets for good stimulus to kind of keep things going. We just don't want to cut shop. We want to make sure that the work is done. Again, our work is restorative. It's nothing crazy. It's meant to just make us feel good, make us feel like we're moving through time and space well. It's familiar. And, he's adding a little more weight to these because we're using a little less volume here, right? We start adding the SSB pause work because we're working on proficiency. This is going to become a primary. We want to be good at this and we want to understand it. We don't want it to shock the system immediately once we turn this into a primary. We start moving to a more technical sense on our deadlift. We're still doing the offhand interventional work, but we're not doing it in a way that's purely like direct interventional, not yet. The next week, 1x5, 925 AMRAP. I told you guys we went straight from this ascending work all the way down to this testing point where we are going to hit a thing. I don't care about quality at this point. I want to see where this breaks. I want to test your ascension. I want to test how you ascend. I want to test your work capacity. I want to test your thoracic rigidity. I want to test, did we even make a dent in what we tried to accomplish, right? And how effective was it? Because that's going to help me predicate what this next phase of direct intervention will actually do for us, right? Because if this worked, then a more aggressive approach will actually probably benefit us and compound it even more, right? So we work up to 925. We do it for a set of 5. We probably had this for an RPE 7. We probably could have done this for 8 reps. We started to collapse a little bit. All we needed to do is like, okay, cool. After 5 reps, he starts to collapse. It could have been, at the RP 10, he would have collapsed a little bit, but he starts getting out of the pocket. But this was a damn good set. And again, we call it what it is. And then we move forward. Again, all of our work. And again, after that point this was what the focus was, right? We knew that we have direct intervention coming up. We're going to continue to progress this. We're going to continue to progress this. We're going to start looking at this more from a technical standpoint now, and we're going to start improving this. But from here, this is where we pivot to direct intervention of actually fixing that and testing it, right? This is how the one weak link we have in order to get us to a 500 kilo squat. We have been successful with what this is doing. We fixed our warm-up progressions. We fixed the things that we need to do in that respect. Now we can actually do this with a great deal of like efficacy and safety and lower risk. So you'll see that we do a quick little deload, and then we go straight into We go straight into 4 days a week. We drop off the 5, we go straight to 4 days a week, and we go straight to SSB work. It becomes our primary, and you'll see SSB with chain. We are doing SSB with chain. We're doing probably 200 pounds worth of chain, 100 pounds worth of chain at this point. The point of this is, again, we're already doing the progress. We understand the progression stuff. That's all continuing to. Now we're doing top down work. We're feeling that from the front. We're instead of just progressing through it through the back, right? We built those habits up. So now that I'm impressing those on him, and he's not getting gassed out, he's not having issues in that respect. We made some pivots to squat, bench, added more bench frequency because we're not getting our arms beat up by a straight bar, right? We're not, we can get away with it a little bit more. So we're doing a little more bench work and stuff because we can get away with it because now we're, like we're not using that as much because we're using an SSB, so it's not beating us up as much. But if you watch, the progression is what we're doing is we're overloading. Again, we're not sitting an 800-900 pound range, right? We're sitting in these very sub-maximal ranges. And it's very, very easy. It's very, very simple. It's very, very proficient. We're still doing the work that we're doing. We're doing our competition deadlifts. We're still working on 3s. We're still working on 2s. We're still pause squatting with an SSB. We're still working on our extension, right? We're continuing to do our upper body work, but we're adding a little more frequency, right? Because we can get away with it because we're not using a straight bar, right? We're doing this intelligently, right? The whole goal of this is to now really start to acclimate him and really test this and really push that top end of the lift and really kind of dial that in. I just kind of punished him a little bit for a few weeks of hitting a very heavy weight. So now I still want to keep him primed for heavy weight for the next couple of weeks because I'm going to have him do a very heavy set in 3 weeks. But I really want to work on this and I still want to keep him primed for that heavy weight, but I also still want to make sure that it's efficient and it's done well. So as we lead into the next weeks, you're going to see that the weights are going to start to climb. We're going to start reducing the load. We're still using a very heavy amount of chain. We're using 100, 120, 140 pounds of chain, sometimes 2. It just really depends, but we're using about 100, right now this is probably just under 1,000 pounds at the top, etc. We are focusing on making sure this is taxing him, right? We are still doing the things we need to do in this front. So we pushed this a little bit more. We bumped his deadlift a little higher earlier in the block so that we're not going to be pushing this toward the end because we're going to be pushing this toward the end. His conditioning is going up, so you're seeing this a lot better, but this is allowing him that all that good ascension habit and all that, preparation that we've done has led us to this point to be able to effectively do really good reps and high quality reps with as little volume as possible, right? Again, we're accustomed to this training method. Everything feels good. We're doing it in a very effective manner. And at that point, we remove the chains and away we go, right? Away we go, right? We start pushing and we start hammering and we start feeling things out, right? We start continuing to push. We go back to speed deadlift. Again, we pushed earlier in the block so that we can back off and start pushing this upwards. Still doing what's considered bread and butter, doing the essentials, doing the leg work, doing leg extension work, doing different areas and stuff that's just kind of catching us up, belt squat RDLs, different things like that, cutting some of this stuff out because we're not really focusing on the conditioning aspect because that's built up pretty good. We're focusing on really testing this out and pushing this and really forcing it to be more rigid, right? And that's what's important about this. What's really, really important about this is that this is an undulated week. And what that means is that we pushed this and we kept the overall state of this really, really low because we've been working on this for the last 4 weeks. We've been really pushing into this, really hammering these things, keeping it very, very, very direct intervention on this, right? And this all culminates here when we say, okay, we're hitting it, we're working it really hard, we're seeing improvements. Things are all pointing in the right direction. We look at this 904, like, okay, I think we're ready. Let's see what this does. Let's see where this goes. Let's pace toward this. And this was right before Christmas. And our goal was to say, okay, let's do a top double or triple. So with this, we backed off a little bit this week from this. We took the chains off. We were well over 1,000 on this. I think we were like 1050 or something to that effect with the chain. And from here, we knew that like we were ready. So we kind of made sure that this week was a little bit conservative. And so we pushed to this last part of the block with the SSB. We worked doubles all the way up. And here is where the rubber meets the road. What does this look like? 600, 777, 881, 950, 1014. We came full circle to an ascending method. We took the 5x4 and turned it to a 5x2, right? We used that entire method all the way through, even though it wasn't directly applied in some of the weeks. We turned it into this. It all concluded to this point where we did 1014 by 2 on an SSB, probably at about RP 8.5 to 9, something probably could have done 4 of. That's how this connects long term. This is where we kind of sunset our overall progression. And as we prepared for the last 3 weeks to do a quick little qualifier meet for state championships, for USA Powerlifting, for USAPL Nationals, right? So he needed a qualifier. So this was the kind of the conclusion of that off season before we did like a little 2 to 3 week peak for that. But I hope this kind of helps show you like how this all connected, how we traveled from October, how we travel from October to this 5x4, October 20th to December. So 8 weeks. So 8 weeks, this progression, we went from this 5x4 sub-maximal long play thing, traveled through different like methods, different things, using dynamic effort as a tool, using, accommodating resistance, using ascending method, using top-down methods, different linear periodization techniques, etc., to all kind of come full circle to bring you to this point where it feels connected, right? It all feels connected. We go from the ascending, we learn the good habits, we understand what it feels like to warm up correctly. We use that information, we apply it to a different context, to a lower volume set of methods and more max effort methods, all the way to back to the ascending work where we started, right? And this is just the bread and butter. This is just 101 programming. This isn't hard. This isn't profound. This is stuff that is children can do. And all it requires is just a little bit of planning and a little bit of foresight. But this is an 8-week approach of how we built Devonte's, and it corrected a lot. It corrected a lot. This 8 weeks was directly responsible for his 490.5 kilo squat. This particular 8 weeks is what we set on. I want to thank you for joining me. If you have questions, hit me up. Join me for part 2 as I talk about the meet prep. But I hope that you found this valuable. If you have questions, hit me up at mjgreno.com or mjgreno in Instagram or barpath.pl or whatever. Otherwise, cheers, and we'll talk to you soon.